So last video, I made a program that taught people who have never played video games before how to move, look around, jump, and interact with the environment in Journey without just staring at the floor and walking into walls. I teamed up with a YouTuber named Socratetris, who kindly volunteered to run his mom through the previously mentioned training program in now Journey. His mom is basically our lab rat, who is going to run through Journey so we can take note of what new players struggle with in the game. And we'll use that knowledge to make a better version of the training program and a modified version of Journey that is better at helping your non-gamer parents or loved ones at home learn how to play the game. But for now, this is how non-gamers will play Journey. Anyway, to start things off, I want to introduce Socratetris because he's going to be joining me on this video and sharing his own insights about our little experiment.
Hello again, everyone!
But instead of just telling you about his channel, where he looks at how games and philosophy connect, you should just watch his video on the philosophy that inspired Journey right after this one. At the moment though, could you fill us in on how the beginning of the game went for your mom, Sakura?
Of course, so everything seemed to go moderately well when my mom played through the training program you mentioned earlier, at least to the point where she started Journey without staring at the floor or sand in this case. For this first section of Journey, level 1, or whatever you want to call it here, everything was fine until she reached these tiny ledges that were not shown in the training program.
Yeah, I have to add that to the list of the many things to fix.
Well, maybe you should. Or maybe you shouldn't, cause these ledges didn't cause much issue after stepping up on one. It is pretty clear how the mechanic worked, which is not something I can say about the recharging jump mechanic Journey introduces. Basically, these tapestries act as a fuel for your jump, and your scarf indicates how much fuel you have left. Like the majority of new players, my mom had tunnel vision and only focused on what was in the center of the screen, which made her miss the small detail of the light on her scarf shrinking. I spelled out how the jumping mechanic worked to her, and she did end up getting a firm grasp of how the mechanic worked after desperately trying to reach the collectible on top of this pillar. My mom was punished greatly for repeatedly missing this jump because she had to slowly walk all the way over here to refill her scarf again and again, just because she wasn't experienced enough to control her jump at max height. Eventually, she just gave up out of frustration and found her way out of the level without any other real issues. It was the second stage where things started getting rough, because my mom had no idea what to do. She tried interacting with the tapestry and quickly stopped after noticing the only thing it did was glow a bit. She didn't know it had to be completely covered in the light before something happened, but thankfully a friend arrived to show her how to build the bridge. However, when the cutscenes of the bridge being put together were shown, my mom didn't pay any attention since she was busy trying to figure out why her character just disappeared. She then wandered about looking for an exit, all the while completely forgetting the bridge's existence, until I eventually redirected her. And at that point, she was even confused about why she would want to cross the bridge. It makes sense from her perspective because at no point in the entire level is it clearly visible that the other side of the bridge leads towards the mountain, which has already been established as the player's objective. At this point, I was getting concerned about her slow progress and asked Etra if I had anything to worry about.
Yeah, so I asked you to send me the recording you had so far, cause in a previous video where I led 2 test subjects through Portal, I noted their times for each test chamber and compared it to the average times of 3 literate gamers playing Portal blind. And unless there was any large issue, the average time it took for a non-gamer to beat each test chamber was right around double the time of an experienced player. So I used the same method to calculate your mom's time through these levels, and they each took a bit over twice as long as an average player. So at that point, I didn't see anything to really worry about. And there were no real big issues with the next few parts either. Mind if I take over this bit?
Sure.
Sweet. So it may have been a moderately frustrating struggle in the beginning 2 stages for our new player, but as I already noted, on stage 3, things started getting better. After following this very clever path the devs hid in these dunes, she freed this carpet creature who repeatedly showed her where to go and what to do. I tried to find the official names for these creatures, and it appears that the community refers to them as cloth homies.
Well, there's actually a whole side of the community, including me, that thinks it's cuter to call them dogs.
Yeah, I am quite aware that there are some people in this world with objectively wrong opinions, but that is beside the point at the moment. your mom's ever-increasing band of cloth homies.
Cloth doggos.
Guiding the way was a blessing for this playthrough, and she really started to enjoy the game a bit. In fact, after finishing Journey, she even noted that this section was her favorite part. When she got to the prison tower, she fell off once, but this fall wasn't nearly as punishing as missing that one jump from before, since the wonderful cloth homies just flew her up the tower to where she fell off. Stage 4 also went well, but our new player didn't really enjoy it, since there was no need to move on these slide sections. At the beginning of the stage, she did try to go through these arches just for fun, but she overshot and slammed her face into poles, then she just watched the game play itself. This section resulted in nearly 11 minutes of her doing almost nothing. She was so disconnected from her character at that point, she had no initial reaction to falling into the abyss. Now, the abyss scared her a bit, but that fear was alleviated when another player joined her party and acted as a sort of guide. Then, we arrive here, to these ruins, and she suffered through an entire 18 minutes of repeatedly failed jumps, due to 3 things we'll get to in a second here. She met the dragon creature as it erupted from the ground, but she didn't react whatsoever due to the excessive frustration caused by over 20 minutes of failed jumps. However, after seeing the dragon tear apart the scarf of her new friend, she was understandably scared and did not want to proceed down this path where the dragons were. She wanted to stay safe, not run into danger. And of course you wouldn't run into danger if you had no concept of saving, loading, or death in a video game, all mechanics which are absent from Journey. As Sakura so wonderfully put it, she had the mindset of a human, not a gamer. And he had to nudge her down the path with the dragons on it. So in an uneasy and frustrated state, our new player started to climb the Tower of Reunion, but couldn't get past the first jump. For 20 minutes. She became so frustrated that eventually she stopped showing emotion and just stopped caring. At the end of those 20 minutes, she just sank beneath the water, let go of the controller, and sat there. Which begs the question, what just happened? How did she flawlessly get jump after jump after jump correct in this training program on her very first try, but hours later barely scrape through a similar jumping section after 20 minutes, and did even worse in the very next section where she couldn't even make a single jump in 20 more minutes? Well, our theory right now is that there are 3 main issues that cause this, and they all simply compound one another. First, take a look at this jump she was good at, and this jump she wasn't good at. This one, and this one, this one, and this one. Notice anything yet? You should see that the jumps that gave her problems were what I'll call vertical jumps, onto a platform above her in height. And the jumps she was good at were about jumping from platforms at the same verticality. On top of that, you'll notice that all the jumps she had great difficulty with, she was using poor camera angles. Now, she used the camera to help distance these jumps in the training program and in the beginning of the game, so why did she just stop looking up and down for all these other jumps? Well, the simple answer is, she forgot how to. Because when you think about it, back in the training program, she was introduced to looking up and down as the very first thing she learned about her camera, and she was able to control the camera very well. And after that, she needed to move the camera vertically for this jump in Area 1, but Area 2 just required looking left and right. Area 3 was a flat desert with no verticality. It had this tower, but the camera moved up automatically. Area 4 was downhill and on more flat plains. And then in Area 5, we are introduced to a brand new concept not even taught in the training game, vertical jumps. That alone is one thing to throw her off her guard in this section, but on top of that, these vertical jumps required the use of moving the camera in a way she hadn't needed to for well over an hour. And that all explains quite a bit, but it doesn't explain why, after making 3 vertical jumps in Area 5 over 20 minutes, she couldn't make a single vertical jump in Area 6 over 20 minutes. And for this point, Sakura found a fascinating pattern throughout Journey. Would you mind sharing with our audience?
Leave it to me. The reason we chose Journey as a new player experience is that it is a very simple game, but when it becomes too simple, it can work against helping a new player remember more complex actions. Watching my mother play these games taught me that much of game literacy is based on teaching yourself button inputs, experimenting, memorizing, and habituating your play. As we learned from Etra's mom playing Deltarune, something as simple as pressing 2 buttons at once is remarkably complex for a gaming illiterate person. But exactly how complex does it get? To answer that, I made this chart, 7 levels of input complexity. In Etra's training program for Journey, you see the progression of input complexity you would probably see in a normal game, with the input complexity generally increasing over time as new abilities get unlocked. However, after the first stage in Journey, we can clearly see that the game gets players comfortable doing no inputs above level 2, meaning you can complete sections 2, 3, and 4 by only holding one singular button or joystick at a time, which is exactly what my mom did. Now, when stage 5 and 6 are introduced, the new player is supposed to jump from the level 2 actions that they are used to, up to the level 7 action of 1. Hold up on the R stick to find a platform, 2. Hold X to jump, 3. Hold up on the L stick to move, 4. Hold down on the R stick to find the position, and 5. Adjust hold on your L stick to land in the correct place.
And when you combine that input complexity spike, the fact that one of their actions they were supposed to perform wasn't tested since over an hour ago, and the fact that they have never jumped in this particular way before, we can find a perfect recipe for 40 minutes of failed jump attempts.
Exactly. Yet eventually Mom made these jumps with heavy guidance, but it is likely she would have given up without this kind stranger helping her finish up the level and prepare for the ascension.
Even though she was frustrated, our new player got invested in the new setting, in the new mechanics of the wind. And when she got to this bridge that made her lose 12 minutes of progress, and is the most punishing obstacle in the game for no apparent reason, Socratetris took over to bring her back on the bridge, and kept the hype of the final stretch strong. She marched onward through the bitter cold with confidence, since it was merely testing level 2 inputs of only pressing a single button at a time entirely through the climb. She clung to these pillars to avoid the wind, and she dashed from tunnel to tunnel to avoid the mythical beasts of metal. She barely lost to the wind in this path here, but the developers actually gave her an easier route as the consequence of failure. She marched to the mountains strong, and eventually burst into the heavens.
The joy of this moment is that you get all of your abilities back in an enhanced way, and you are tested with them one last time with obstacles that echo those found throughout the entire journey. And with that came a higher level of input complexity than my mom was used to. But, oddly enough, she had no trouble whatsoever with this section. In fact, it almost seemed like she played better, easily soaring through obstacles that she barely scraped through previously, without a single instance of testing these skills in between. It's almost like the hype of this moment made her play better and remember skills all the way back from the training program, which raises a lot of questions that I don't think we have time to go into now, but this spontaneous recovery of skills is definitely something to note and watch for in future new playtests. She made it to Journey's End, the light of the mountain, and after reading the names of all those who helped her along the way, she watched one final sunset. After countless struggles, including nearly an hour of failed jumps, my mom finished the game in 3 hours and 22 minutes, just around double the average player's time. Afterwards, her first words were,
"Thank you for creating Journey. Despite the fact that I didn't think I would make it. It was great, Alex. I had a lot of fun."
And I was incredibly surprised. But it turns out, despite all the struggles, she had a great time.
She seemed to enjoy Journey more than previous test subjects have enjoyed Portal, Deltarune, or other games that have been reported to me. So I highly recommend grabbing a controller, setting up the training program, and see for yourself how this program is not good enough yet. Because we still have the question, after a new player completes Journey, what's next? If I had a new player play Portal or Deltarune, I'd feel okay with placing them in an easy FPS or an easy RPG. But there's no way I'd feel confident throwing Socratetris' mom into Breath of the Wild when at the end of the game, she didn't even have a firm grasp of the camera controls yet. Which brings me to an analogy. Our new player's love of gaming is like a starving, homeless child. And to them, Journey is like a chocolate bar, and Portal and Deltarune are like somewhat dry meat. Sure, our new player might love that chocolate bar, but it might not keep them going for much longer on their gaming journey. Whereas Portal and Deltarune might not be as tasty for our new player, it will give them the knowledge and sustenance to keep on going for far longer. So what I am going to do is take my training program and completely rework it in a live stream over the next few days and modify Journey. So both of those games together can become a perfect superfood that is closer to dry meat covered in chocolate, which actually sounds pretty disgusting when I say it out loud, but I hope you get what I mean. And I'll have a video about modifying both those games linked up there if it exists, and here's the link to my training program video. And finally, make sure to check out Socratetris' video on the philosophy that inspired Journey. And as always, thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and I will catch you all next time. Peace.